Todd, tell me, why do so many real estate agents and brokers fail at making a sellable business, and how we can avoid that same fate?
Man, that's a great question. That might be the million-dollar question of the day. I think probably, Nathan, it's because they don't plan to. Most entrepreneurs and real estate agents that are entrepreneurial driven, broker owners with that entrepreneurial spirit, I don't think they start that way. They start their brokerage up and they just don't have a plan at that moment in time to bake into it for it to become a business that they could exit at some point. And I think that's primarily, if you had to put your finger on it, what we've discovered from our time in real estate and working with real estate agents and broker owners all these years. Lack of a plan, lack of an execution of it, didn't even think about it, take a big gulp somewhere down the road. It's like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have.
So it sounds like the agents and brokers really should start from the beginning of baking into this system a sellable business, a process.
Yeah, of course, but they don't know how.
Right.
You know, it's like they don't teach you that in real estate school. And the brokerage that you leave to start your own real estate company, they're not teaching you that, okay, at all, because they don't have it. So yeah, the majority of the industry, all of the norms and standards it's not part of it. But it is a very normal thing outside of real estate in just about all the other business world, especially in the tech industry, for example. We decided that when we put Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty together, that we were going to make sure that was part of the system for any broker owner to be able to take advantage of, and from the beginning have that being baked in. A built to sell business doesn't mean you're building it to sell. It just means that you end up with a business you can sell if you want to. I want to make sure everybody's that we're clear on that. We're not here to tell people like you should build your business so you can sell it. No. You should scale up a business that is so good and so valuable. If you wanted to, you could. In other words, it's so valuable other people would want it. Makes you millions. People love working there. Works without your constant involvement. So valuable, other people will buy it from you. That seems like the dream that every owner of anything would want in real estate, right? So a business like that, we have a system that breaks it down in 8 simple steps.
Tell me a little bit about your real estate career, what got you into real estate, and basically why we should listen to you.
Well, I started out as a failure. And what I mean by that was I was working at a pizza place when I started college. Graduated from high school, started college, working at a pizza place, and it just happened to be owned by a couple of pals of mine that I graduated high school with. I convinced my grandmother to loan me the money necessary to buy one of these pizza places. And she did. She loaned me $40,000. And so I went and bought this pizza franchise. 3 years later, at the age of 21, I'm bankrupt and homeless. I failed at it. I did what a lot of people do when things don't work out in life. I got my real estate license. Very first day on the job, no joke, I walk in and the broker introduces me to another agent who was sort of new and said, why don't you guys get together and figure it out? And I didn't know, I just figured out the way it was. And that was a lesson learned. Is that majority of real estate agents, when they join a real estate company, look around at what everybody else is doing and copy them. But lo and behold, the majority of the real estate agents at the real estate company, any brokerage out there that's a traditional company, 87% of those guys aren't going to be there, guys and gals, ain't going to be in real estate within 5 years, probably copying the wrong people from the get-go. And I was no different. Not being critical or anything, but that's just kind of how it went. Of course, I spent the first couple of weeks cold calling, which was that agent's big idea. And a couple of weeks into that, I was like, this ain't for me. What have I got myself into? How in the world am I going to pay my grandmother back, let alone get out of my father-in-law's basement that I had to move into because I didn't have a home anymore. I lost it. So I walked into my broker's office about a year or two later, and he could tell I was pretty distressed. And he said, what's on your mind, Todd? And I says, well, I got in this business because I believed I could make $1 million or more selling real estate. And he laughed at me, laughed right in my face. Have you ever had anybody laugh in your face when you pitched them your goals? It's not a cool thing to witness. But he could tell I was serious, so he got a little more serious. He says, well, what's your point? And so my point is that this business sucks. I'm working hard, I'm nonstop, I'm not getting ahead. This is my situation. I'm at a loss. And he said, well, first of all, your goal or this vision you have, Todd, of making over $1 million a year selling real estate. Now, granted, Nathan, this is 1991, long time ago, galaxy far, far away. He said nobody does that. And in his world, he was probably right. Nobody was doing that he knew. But I was flipping through a magazine. There was one real estate agent in the entire United States of America that was doing over $1 million a year selling real estate at that time. And it was a guy named Marshall up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's no longer with us right now, but he was at the time. And the next closest competitor, come to discover, in the United States was 50% of this guy's production. So he was way out in front of everybody at this moment in time. So I happened to mention this to the broker at the RE/MAX office. And he says, well, why don't you go talk to him then? So I did. Picked up the phone, called him up, said, Marshall, my name's Todd, down here in Metro Atlanta, you're up in Grand Rapids, you're crushing it. What do? I want to be like you. And he says, well, here's my fee to come shadow me. Come on up, spend a couple of days. So I did that. I had to borrow the money from my mom, go up there, spend a couple of days with this guy, and I learned things that obviously no one else was doing, that I'd even heard of. Direct response marketing, performance guarantees, unique selling propositions, leverage, processes and systems, and things like that. So I just brought that back, put it to work in my real estate business there. No joke, Nathan. Within 3.5 years, I was making over $1 million a year selling real estate and became the #1 real estate agent at that office, #1 in Georgia for RE/MAX and all that kind of stuff. Went on to be top 10 in the world for RE/MAX. Made over $50 million as a real estate agent. Retired from selling real estate at age 35. Just decided to watch my team run. And the business was so good, I was able to sell that company that had turned into a real estate brokerage by that time for, I thought was really good. As a matter of fact, at that moment in time, according to some research done by Best Agent Business, there was no other real estate sales team brokerage that had been sold in the United States. They said, hey, it looks like you're the first real estate sales team brokerage that has ever been sold. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I just know that, I learned a lot through that process of selling a business back in April of 2009. But that's an important point. 2007, 8, 9, people that are watching right now that were selling real estate, they know that was not a good time.
Oh, yeah.
But my business was on fire. We were selling more homes than anybody else. When I exited that company, we were getting about 8% on every single listing, not paying anything to the cooperating agents. We were selling houses nobody else was based on the systems that we had developed and built into that business at that time. So it was so valuable, other people wanted it. It made a lot of money, and it worked without me, which were requirements for exiting a company at that time. And it was a good time for me to go do that at that moment in history. So learned a lot through that process, but that's a pretty significant story in real estate, I guess.
Sure. And what was great about my business is I was able to come in years after you even exited the real estate business and copy what your business did into my business. And I went from 25 sales to over 600 sales, making over $8 million in real estate in gross combined income on a team by just really complementing and copying the things that you did in your business.
Yeah.
And bringing it to mine. Now you've showed how many people to do the same thing now.
I remember when you showed up on the scene. From what I recall, you're a solo real estate agent, working really hard, making about $200,000 a year, which was well above industry standard, which means you weren't like the other agents out there. You took that same system, which is copyable, put it to work into your business, and I watched you scale that thing up to a $10 million income a year business. Seemingly like that. Now you own your own company, and I've watched it. Your business works without your constant involvement. People love working there. You make a lot of money. It is an absolute sellable business asset, no question about it. If we take a step back and you think about the fastest way to success, or maybe even a better way to describe it is when people ask me, can you describe your system at your home sold guaranteed realty to the world? So most broker owners can't, even sizable companies, seem not to do a great job when they're confronted with the question of, hey, why should I join your company? I'm a real estate agent. Why should I join your company over and above anybody else or any other option? It's almost, they all say the same thing. When a seller asks a real estate agent, before they ever even call the real estate agent now, they're asking the question, why should I list my home with you over and above anybody else or any other option, including just doing what I'm doing right now? And most real estate agents can't answer that question effectively enough to the satisfaction of the consumers. So understanding the value of a unique selling proposition is the underpinning. It's kind of at the foundational level of the entire system we have. So I can see why the real estate industry's commissions have been falling for years. Most of them are doing things the same way, and it's not all that exciting to buyers and sellers out there in the marketplace, so they just keep going back to commissions.
So you can say that your home sold guaranteed realty, we focus on adding value to the customer versus what most brokers, they just do on the race to the bottom.
Yes.
Who can be the cheapest?
Yeah, value as a system. So if the average commission in a marketplace is somewhere between 2 and 2.5, the average commission for the Your Home Sold company in that marketplace is going to be probably 3.5 to 4. That is an absolute fact. The agents and broker owners at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty on the same selling price make 50%, sometimes to 100% more money per transaction, which means they have more money to be able to reinvest back in their business and get it to the point where they most want. And everybody seems much happier, especially the customer, because they're getting more of what they want. When a guy like me, who's essentially a failure, dropped out of college, failed business at the age of 21, bankrupt and homeless, having to flash sell my home, move into my father-in-law's basement. Thank God I just got married. When a guy like me, is all of a sudden finds himself making millions of dollars a year, when the average selling price was $120-something thousand at that moment in time. So that was it. When I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm actually being more successful in real estate than many of my peers around me, despite me. So that's when I realized, like, okay, if this can happen for me, it can happen for Nathan. It can happen for just about anybody we come into contact with. So I think too many people spend their time trying to figure things out. I'm not going to ask directions. I'm going to stay lost until I find my way. And it's like, that's foolishness. The best entrepreneurs that we're around in our Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty network, the best entrepreneurs are humble enough to copy. I think that's what makes this uncommonly good, is that there is a system at the heart of it, and it's scalable, and it works.
So let's shift gears a little bit. You've developed an 8-point system to help build a sellable business, a sellable real estate business. Can you give us a quick overview of these steps?
These built to sell in 8 steps are essentially how any business out there in the real world, they have these things in place, which makes them, quote, a sellable business. So in other words, how do I make my business more likely to be something that can work without me, makes me a lot of money, people love working there, and it's so valuable other people would want it. I call that a built to sell business. I do want to say this again, take the opportunity that I'm not advocating, and I don't believe you are either, that you build a business to sell it. I don't think that's a great vision. But building a business that is sellable might be the very definition of wisdom. So it's like, okay, well, what is that? So we took that and we baked it into the license of a Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty broker owner gets. We call it built to sell in 8 steps. And these are not anything I made up. This has been well documented outside of the real estate industry. You can go pick up any book, and these steps are not like foreign concepts to people. Step 1 is to isolate a product or service with the potential to scale. Step 2 is to create a positive cash flow cycle. Step 3 is to hire and train a highly skilled sales force. Step 4 is to stop selling everything else. Step 5 is to launch a long-term incentive plan for managers. Step 6 would be to find a broker. Step 7, tell your management team. Step 8, convert offers to binding deal. That's it. I mean, those are the 8 steps right there.
Well, let's jump into a little more.
The first 4 are the critical ones. Those are the ones that get right in the beginning, because there won't be launching a long-term incentive plan for a manager. There won't be finding a broker, telling your management team, or getting offers and turning them into a binding deal. There won't be any of that without getting the first part of it correct. The first step in building a great real estate company that can thrive without your constant involvement is to find a product or service with the potential to scale. To do this, we turned our system at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty system into essentially a brandable, tangible product. We gave it a name. So we turned the system into a product so people can understand it. The easiest way to turn any system into a product is to give it a name. If you can brand it, people can understand it. So we call it the YHSGR system, obviously, since it's what we use. I'll give you an example. We have a system inside of it where we can take a seller's property, a listing, and within 3 weeks, predictably generate about 30 leads or more. And a third of those leads will have a house to sell. Predictably, every time an agent lists a home, they can turn that one listing within 3 weeks into 30 new leads without expensive advertising, without cold calling, manual grunt prospecting, any of that stuff. At least 30 new leads within 3 weeks, and a third of them have a house to sell. That's
amazing.
10 buyers with a house to sell every time you list a home.
I've seen it happen so many times.
Yes, you've been a benefactor of that, no question about it. And we call it leveraging listings to get more listings. We took a system, which essentially is a service, and we put a product name on our brand name, and that makes sense to everyone, because obviously a service as a product is easy for everyone to understand, whether you're a broker owner coming in or even a real estate agent.
And that leads to number 2. Why is it so important to have an upfront cash flow
Aha!
coming in?
Yeah.
And how does that change a broker or an agent's business?
Yeah, it's critical.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me describe it this way. Real estate agents are very familiar with a negative cash flow cycle. There's a difference between negative cash flow cycle and negative cash flow. We're talking about cash flow cycles. And since this is about building a business, it's hard to build a business when you don't know if you're going to get paid. And that's a real estate agent and most broker owners. So in other words, real estate agent gets customers, they sell a house, they get paid at the end, which means they had to front and load everything, all the investments to get there. So at some point down the road, even if they had gobs of agents and they're making money because of the sheer volume that they have, they're gonna have a difficult time getting a good multiple from anyone in the private equity world or outside of real estate or anyone that would buy that business because it operates on a negative cash flow cycle. But it is an absolute requirement to get some amount of money on the front end instead of front end loading everything. You don't have to get paid the entire amount of money on the front end, but maybe covering some hard costs and stuff like. So we bake that into our system on both levels. Right. For the broker owner and for the real estate agents. And you would know this pretty good because you're an expert at it, is that you get paid a portion of your income on real estate transactions at your company, like all your home sold guarantee realty companies do, get paid a portion of your income on the front end of the real estate transaction, and then the rest of it at the end of the real estate transaction. But creating a positive cash flow cycle, step 2 in that process, is one that can't be ignored.
Yeah.
If you want to have a business that works without your constant involvement. Faster, you make predictable incomes, and it's sellable.
Number 3 is one of my favorites, is you have to be able to build a highly trained sales team to be successful. How does this step help brokers build a business that's scalable?
Man, it's a great question. Step 3 is hire and train a highly skilled sales force. All right, so let's look at the industry norms today. Not a highly skilled sales force.
Now, they pretty much hire anybody that can fog them.
Exactly. The norm and standard in real estate is do you have a real estate license? Are you breathing? We're for you. Yeah. Okay. But what if peeps did like we did? You have a production standard and you have to apply to be a part of it. And that's number 1. And number 2, train them. Okay, means that you just don't expect people for the way they are. You train every day. But most of the real estate industry focuses training on continuing education stuff like contracts, ethics violations, and state laws. But this is a business of relationships. So really the training that should be happening is on sales skills, negotiating skills, closing skills, and especially marketing skills. And the reason I think that's not a norm and standard in real estate is because a lot of the people that own these companies or started them or work there haven't themselves been trained on those things. That's who wins in the marketplace, just like our favorite sports teams. You can call it production standard, but there's standards at all levels of the business, conversion standards, commission standards, and everybody plays differently. When there is a standard, you could replace the word standard with score. Everybody plays differently when you keep score. So you end up with a competition or a competitive environment, and which means people want to win. They hate losing more than they like winning. And those kinds of businesses and cultures change the world, man. Like I said, most people are trying to build a business for income. Certainly understand it. We all want income and need it. But I think you can do both. You can build a business that makes a lot of money while simultaneously becomes something that's so valuable other people will want it, a sellable business. There's a trend today in the real estate industry where some broker owners make no money, practically no money on their real estate brokerage, but they use it as a means to make money on a back end, like on mortgage business or title business and things like that. So they're kind of spread out a little bit. And then down the road, they realize like, okay, I can't go as hard as I used to. And so what's my exit plan? So they might start shopping their brokerage around and it's like, dude, you make no money on your real estate company. So why would we be interested in buying that? We'll give you an earn out. And it's like, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I'm like, yeah, so stop selling everything else. It's about focus.
Yeah.
All right. And you'll discover that the businesses on planet Earth that on their way to being great, on their way up, narrowed the focus of what they do really, really, really well and kind of said no to a lot of other things and just got really good at that one thing. And so that principle has served us well in Your Home Sold. And it led to, quite frankly, the movement toward the brand name, Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. I mean, there's a lot of debate there. I think we debated it for 2 years? But the funny thing is, is that when we flip the name over to Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, we got more buyers calling us than ever. So the surveys of the buyers, it was like, why are you calling us? The company is Your Home Sold Guaranteed. And it's like, well, because I have a home to sell, but people start out as buyers.
You talk about creating a long-term incentive plan in step 5.
Yeah.
Why is it so critical for retaining top talent and building long-term value?
Yeah, one of the key aspects of any great business is incentive-based pay plans. Incentive-based pay plans. So whatever you want more of, you can incentivize around that. And I don't think anybody watching here does not know what I'm talking about. So it's the same thing for the people that are most important to your business, i.e. a leadership team or a management team. If you want to build a business that's going to work without your involvement, you have to incentivize people to be there and stay there. And to work through the hard times, not just the good times, but the hard times. So we took that to heart and created a compensation system manual, as you know, inside our Built to Sell playbook. And this compensation system manual lays out all the pay plans for everyone in the brokerage, as well as the real estate sales team, from the courier all the way up to the COO and everything in between, the agent, the inside sales agent, the transaction coordinators, listing managers, the chief financial officer, the recruiters, everyone. There's an incentive-based pay plan. It is a direct principle to make sure that's the best way to get goals aligned. Your business will almost build itself when you get the right people in the right seats with the right incentive-based pay plan. And we were able to discover that and bake that into our system from the beginning. And it's
great companies. Yeah, great companies. Have that built into it. Step 6 is finding a business broker. What's that about and why is that so important?
Okay, well, step 6, find a broker. Step 7, tell your management team. And step 8, convert offers to binding deals are obvious things that happen. When you find a broker, it just means that, okay, I'm going to call up someone who specializes in taking my business and getting it matched to others out there.
So, we've covered a lot about building a sellable business. Let's actually talk about selling it. How do we go about doing that?
That's how we help them with the coaching, the training, and the deliverable of the system itself. All right, so you get this brand, you get all of those systems, and you get all of that training and coaching, including baked into that, all of those 8 steps, at least the beginning parts of it specifically, right out of the chute. That's all baked into what we call a Built to Sell playbook. So we take that, hand it over to the broker owners here, grab them by the hand, and move them through it, just like if you bought any legitimate, excellent franchise out there in the world. This is not a franchise, though. It's a license to keep the expenses down and make it really affordable for everyone to do and do really well. But that's how we do it. Okay, we empower them with the system, grab them by the hand, and lead them to the promised land. Well, we give them the system, and all of those steps that we mentioned there to have a sellable business asset are built into the system. That's what the broker owner is buying from us.
So those 8 sellable, scalable things that we just went over, that's important, essential for every business to be scalable. We just give the YHSG owners, the Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty brokers, those whole systems and processes to do that.
It's all handed to them on a silver platter day one. Wow. I'll give you an example. A gentleman named Tracy King, Kings of Real Estate in the great state of Tennessee. When I met Tracy for the first time, he was doing about $560,000 in total income with his real estate brokerage, gross commission income. It was him, an admin named Tanner, and his wife, Chris. They were all working together, and this is what he tells me, we're working 7 days a week, nonstop. They got involved in our system, and in a very short period of time, no joke, he makes $10 million a year. Now he works 1 hour a week in his business, and that is no joke.
Amazing.
Yep. And the thing that he's most proud of is he's able to give hundreds of thousands of dollars away every year to some ministries that he believes in and supports with his whole heart. As an example of a success story, here's another one, Shelly Salas. Shelly, when I met her and Lewis had a real estate sales team. Their primary business was in the REO field. In other words, they got assets, foreclosures handed to them from asset managers. So they were selling just foreclosures. And it took them 300 transactions a year, Nathan, to make $500,000. And it was killing them. Their commissions were this big, and the banks putting all that pressure and stress on them, and sometimes not paying them and reimbursing them like they should if you know how the REO niche works, and they didn't like it. So they got involved in our system. Fast forward, very short period of time, they make over $9 million a year. $9 million, not sales volume, income, no REOs on about 900 transactions a year. They just bought a second home in Puerto Rico, right there on the beach where Shelly's husband and their family's from. That's two dramatic life stories. I can give you a story of my own daughter, Morgan Walters. Morgan's in college, playing softball. The career didn't go all that well. She gets hurt. What am I going to do, Dad? And I'm like, I don't know, babe. You got to go figure out how you want to make a living there. So she decides to get involved in real estate. I guess that's what some people do when things don't work out in life. They get their real estate license. So she starts out with zero. She got no database. She has no money and no leads from Dad, because I'm retired from selling real estate. I'm running and scaling up real estate companies. But she gets involved in the system, and her very first 12 months makes $250,000 as a 23-year-old. These things are unheard of.
So for brokers who are ready to stop running in circles and stop building a bigger business, what should they do next?
Build a bigger, better business. I like it. Just book a 15-minute call with our team. And on this 15-minute call, we're going to ask some questions of where you are right now and then give you the roadmap on exactly the next steps to take to have that bigger, better business that makes you millions, works without your constant involvement. People love working there, and this thing transforms into a business that you can sell if you want to.